Thank you so much for inviting me to speak about a topic that really does mean a lot to me. Research and how the community can get involved and why it's important that you do so. So first, just some disclosures. I am a paid consultant for some biotech, but what is more relevant for today's talk is that I do sit on the board for both Flock and HCU Network America. First, I'm just going to start with an overview of clinical research. What is clinical research and what is the process? So it is the bridge between scientific discoveries and better patient care. So clinical research is exploring homocystinuria as a whole, biomarkers, how it progresses over time, the mechanism, and that really can help to improve diagnosis and open the door for new therapies. And so every study can contribute valuable knowledge, even failed studies. We learn something every time research is done. And there's a couple of different types of clinical research. Observational, so this is exactly what it sounds like. We're just observing the patient community, over time, tracking the disease progression, and it helps to understand the natural history of the disease. And this is a valuable foundation for developing better clinical trials and helping to accelerate research. There's interventional studies, and so this is what you might think of when someone says clinical trials. This is trialing new drugs and therapies in the patient population to prove whether a new therapy is safe and effective. There's also things like registries and biobanks. So registries is collecting health information and data, building a database that is accessible to researchers and clinicians to help understand that disease better, build better clinical trials, enable new research. And also biobanks, which just collects biological samples and provides those to clinicians. That is also very useful in research. And I'll be giving a few examples of each as I go through this talk. So what steps are needed to progress to a clinical trial? The first is discovery. So finding new therapies, finding promising molecules that could really make a difference for patients. And it's also looking at the natural history data. That's really a valuable part of getting started. You really need to understand what you're going to do before you start to do it. The next is preclinical. And my career has really focused on this part of the process. So this is showing proof of mechanism and proof of concept for new therapies that have been discovered and validated in simpler studies. And this can be looking at cell models like human cells or animal models like mice. Once you produce enough data showing that this is safe and effective in relevant models, you can move on to toxicology and quality control. So this is really drilling into that safety aspect. And this is, they're called GLP tox studies or pre-IND studies. And this is highly regulated, a lot of oversight to ensure that this is really safe and effective and will justify going into human clinical trials. It also helps to establish your starting dose. And if you do that well, it'll accelerate and allow more efficient clinical trials moving forward. The second part of that is manufacturing. You need to show that you are able to produce high quality, consistent batches. So that moving forward, you know that every batch is similar and is going to have the same impact, and there won't be different side effects because your batch to batch is different. And then finally, it's that regulatory and ethical review. This is where you take your entire package for an IND, you take your entire package to the FDA or equivalent institution and formally request permission to start human testing. So they review everything that you've done and either say, no, you need to do a couple more things, or they give you permission to move forward. The second part is IRB approval, and this is looking at your protocol. What are you planning to do in that clinical trial? And this is an independent review ensuring that your rights, safety, and well-being is being respected in that trial. And so the full clinical path is shown here, and everything that I talked about on that previous slide is contained in that preclinical phase. And then there's that pause for the IND. Again, that's just requesting permission to move forward into human studies. And ideally, that is just a pause, not a stop. Next will be phase 1. And so this is now in humans, but typically this will be in healthy adults, and these are volunteers. And this is primarily showing safety and fine-tuning that dose that may be efficacious for patients. And ideally, in phase 1, you are able to do a small phase 1B at the end in a very small number of patients to get early signal on whether your drug is efficacious, but the focus here is really on safety. And doing that small phase 1B allows you to kind of understand a little bit better what dose will be appropriate in the patient population. And so that will help you design your phase 2 a lot better. And so then phase 2 will be in patients. Typically there is a drug group and a placebo group, and there are different ways to design that. But again, the focus is really going to be on safety with efficacy as well. And safety is something monitored throughout this entire process. Phase 3 is then just looking a little bit more closely into the efficacy. And this is in a much larger group, and this is going a lot longer. So you're looking at this over time to see if there are side effects that develop with repeat dosing, and ensure that your efficacy going forward is consistent with as doses are given. At this point, once you've generated enough safety and efficacy data, you can submit an NDA. And so this is a formal request to consider the drug for market approval. And again, I show a little stop sign here. Ideally, this is just a pause, but for some drugs, this is a stop. But if FDA approval is granted, you then move into phase 4. This is post-approval, looking at long-term data following patients as they continue to use the drug. There may be long-term side effects that everyone needs to be aware of. And this also justifies moving forward into the pediatric population, although that can also be done in phase 3. At the bottom here, it shows the number of participants typically in these different phases. For rare disease populations like homocystinuria, it often is much, much lower than that. So the average successful drug will spend 14 years in the pipeline, from discovery all the way to market approval. And approximately 10% of drugs that begin human testing are approved. So if 10% are approved, that means 90% fail at some point in this process. And so why can they fail? There's a bunch of different reasons. The first is safety and efficacy. And this is really where you want your drug to fail. If it's not safe or efficacious, we shouldn't be spending money on this. It should go towards something more promising. And like I said, even failed studies, you learn something. You might discover different mechanisms or different ways that the disease responds that can open the door for new discoveries. The other is lack of natural history. If you don't understand the disease, you're not going to be able to track it over time and understand where the drug is impacting. And if we're not able to see that difference, then you're not going to meet your endpoints in your clinical trial, and a drug can fail. So it's really important to get involved in natural history studies if they're available to you, and I'll be talking a little bit more about that in a minute. The third is recruitment failure, and this is a challenge for all clinical trials, but especially challenging for rare disease populations, just because there aren't very many of you. And if there's a lot going on, you're calling on the same population over and over, and it is difficult, and it can lead to burnout. But that's another reason why to get involved in research. Let the companies know what's most important to you, what you're willing to do And I know Travere, for example, worked very closely with the HCU Network America in order to design their phase 3 so it will work for as many people as possible. But finding enough patients is really important. Usually there is a threshold that you need to reach in order to move forward with the clinical trial. And then last is funding gaps. This is a big one. Trials are expensive, and without good patient engagement or strong initial data, projects may fail to generate enough funding, attract funding, or keep that funding as it moves forward. And this is known as the valley of death. So it's that critical gap between lab discovery and clinical application. It's high risk, high cost, where at that point, since the drug is not approved, nothing is coming back. So it takes a lot to move that forward. And there's a lot of drugs that fail simply because they don't have the funding to move forward. So how do we overcome that valley of death? And this is where you come in. So community participation can be the bridge that helps researchers secure funding and move past that gap. So now I'm just going to be going through a couple of examples that are available to you now to get involved in research. The first important step is just building the foundation. And so there's Coriell Institute. They have a biobank for HCU. And this is all the homocystinureas, CBS deficiency, remethylation disorders, and cobalamin disorders. And it's a secure repository that stores blood, skin, and cell samples for future research. And it's open to anyone with a confirmed HCU disorder, and close blood relatives may also be eligible. It's important to have those matched controls. So why does this matter? It provides researchers with high-quality samples to advance HCU research. It supports studies to better understand HCU biology and develop new diagnostics and treatments. Testing new therapies on cells is often a first step before advancing into animal models. They're very accessible. They're very easy to grow up. You just take them out of the freezer, and by the end of the week, you could be doing some studies. And this allows very quick iteration of screenings that helps to advance into the next phase of research. So that reduces the time and cost of starting new research projects. So how do you get involved? You can request a free collection kit from Coriell by contacting that email address. You can also click that QR code, takes you to all the forums and information. There's additional information on the HCU Network America website as well. So all you do, once you get that collection kit, you donate a blood or a skin biopsy through your healthcare provider. So this is something that you do at your doctor's office. It's not something you need to figure out by yourself at home. And then you just mail that sample off. And then it's available, it's put in this biobank, and is now accessible for researchers to order. Oh, before I move on, I just want to mention one other thing that is also available here at this conference. I wasn't aware of it when I made this slide deck. IVD Solutions, they have a booth out there. They are also building a biobank for plasma samples. IVD Solutions, if you're not aware, they are making a home homocysteine monitor. And collecting those blood samples will help to validate their instrument. It will build the data needed in order to move that forward into clinical trial and into all of your hands. So they're available all day today and all day tomorrow. So if you're interested, please go out there and see them. It's really quick. All right. And then next in building the foundation is natural history studies. As I said before, this is really important to understanding the disease and building better clinical trials. And this is a long-term observational study sponsored by Travere Therapeutics that follows people with HCU over time. And this is for confirmed CBS deficiency. And so why is this important? It improves the understanding of HCU and its long-term complications. So we're building natural history is disease progression over time. It's to capture the whole picture. It identifies biomarkers and health outcomes, and it provides the foundation for future clinical trials and new treatments. And so what will be asked of you? It does include periodic clinic evaluations, and they're going to be looking at a variety of things, and all of this is provided at no cost. So if you're interested in getting involved in this, Travere does have a booth outside, so please take advantage of that and speak to them. But there's information available also at the bottom of the slide here, hcuconnect.org, or email Travere at that email address. There are also opportunities to share your data. And one of the things available right now is the RareX program. And if you were, Brittany gave a really nice overview of this this morning that is going to be much more in depth than this on the other side of the room. But this is a secure patient-powered registry. And it also is collecting natural history. But it's a little bit different than the Travere thing because this can be lifelong. You continue to contribute to this throughout your lifetime if you want. It collects symptoms, treatments, quality of life, disease progression, and you can register as a patient or you can register your child. And it's important to register as early as possible because then we really get that full picture. And it's really important to understand, especially that pediatric period and the transition, puberty and all of that. There's a lot of changes going on. And that is something that we need to understand in order to develop better therapies for that young population. So how can this make a difference? Well, as I've said a couple of times now, it helps to understand the disease. And it identifies unmet needs. There's a lot of things that have been discovered through this program that wasn't really well known to be a big issue for the community, but it comes out in this registry because every voice matters. It accelerates research, clinical trials, new treatment development, and it enables the use of placebo instead of human actual patients in a clinical trial. We have this foundation of baseline information so that that placebo group is not necessary. And this helps accelerate clinical trials because you can maximize the amount of patients that are actually receiving drug, and you can generate that really important pivotal data early. So what's going to be asked of you? This is online, and I guess I should have had a little computer versus a clipboard there. But this is no clinic visits, no cost to you, completely online, at your own pace. You can start and stop as you need. It will save. And then we'd like you to update it at least annually, but ideally every time you have a change in your health. The first time you enroll, there's a head-to-toe survey, and that'll be the biggest ask. After that, it's just updating as things change. And you control who can access your data, which is de-identified. So you are anonymous. No one's going to steal your data. No one's going to sell your data. And you can withdraw at any time. The next option for sharing your data is Flock. Is there anyone here that already uses Flock? Okay, a couple people. So this is a secure patient-powered app, and it is different but complementary to registry data. This is really day-to-day management, everything you're dealing with. It's looking beyond just your symptoms. It's looking at nutrition, stress, sleep, all the things that can come back and impact your metabolic health. And it leads to better understanding for you as a patient. But then there's also the option to opt into research and allow researchers to benefit off of this incredible data as well. It also connects patients, caregivers, and clinicians through real-world data. So why is this important? Well, as I said, it helps you better understand your disease. It helps to illuminate the connections between all these things going on in your life and your levels and your metabolic health. It captures real-world outcomes between clinic visits that might otherwise be missed. How can you accurately summarize what's happened over the last couple of months in just the couple minutes that you see your clinician? And it also generates data that can improve clinical care research and future clinical trials. So how does it work? This is a free app, mobile app for your phone, available on Android and iPhone, and it also connects to wearables. So it's collecting patient data, and all you have to do is wear your watch or your Oura ring or whatever. Users can also export reports to bring with you to clinic visits, making those visits a lot more efficient and productive. And those are available to you regardless of whether you opt in or out of research. And then the other part of this is the research aspect. Opt into research, similar to the RareX program, you get to choose who can access it, how it's used. It's de-identified, it will never be sold, and you can opt out at any time. Next is a clinical trial, ongoing now with Travere Therapeutics, called the Harmony Study. This is a global phase 3 clinical trial evaluating pegtibatinase, which is an investigational enzyme replacement therapy designed to treat classical HCU. They are now recruiting individuals 12 to 65 with classical HCU whose total homocysteine remains high despite treatment. Why does this matter? Why should you get involved? So it evaluates the safety and efficacy of pegtibatinase, and it gets us one step closer to the first disease-modifying therapy for CBS deficiency, and it generates the evidence needed to get to FDA approval. So what will be asked of you? Patients receive twice-weekly subcutaneous pegtibatinase or placebo. Subcutaneous just means just under your skin. This can be administered at home. It goes on for 24 weeks while continuing your current diet and medications. You're also expected to attend a few clinic visits. There's physical exams, blood collection, and safety monitoring. There's also a second trial with Travere going on that I think there's flyers out at their booth. And this is for a pediatric study for pegtibatinase, ages 5 to 11. So if you're interested in either of those, finding out more, please head over to their booth. They have a lot of people that you can talk to and various flyers. And last, there's active opportunities through HCU Network America. Patient surveys, they send out a lot via social media and the newsletter. Please don't ignore these. You can always bookmark them and do it later, but your voice really matters. It helps to better steer the researchers into what they should be focusing on. You can shape the research priorities. And then advocacy, there is a research committee that you can get involved in, and you don't need to have a science background. It's really important to have community members weighing in on the research initiatives. And it helps to ensure that the research that's ongoing and the things that are being funded by HCU Network America is really focused on what matters most to you. So your participation is key. So stay involved. If you're not signed up for the newsletter, please do. Enroll in the RareX program, and if you're already enrolled, have you filled out your head-to-toe survey? Have you updated it lately? Go back and just check. That's really important. And if you need more information about anything I talked about today, you can always contact Brittany at research@hcunetworkamerica.org. And I'm just going to leave you with a quote that I really like from Margaret Mead. She's a cultural anthropologist, and her career was studying small populations. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. So thank you very much.